one thing that I am happy about this Dusseldorf game is that we don't have to think about Uncle Jürgen anymore because he is no longer there. Nuri's won one game and, of course, lost one game. But at least he's now in charge and we don't have to think about this fucking bullshit anymore. It's been a nightmare. I mean, that's gone. We've proven we can do it without him. So there is absolutely no reason to worry about that crap anymore. Be positive. It can't get any worse. Oh, for fuck's sake, man! Just when I thought things couldn't get any worse, I woke up this morning feeling pretty sick. I've got a bad cold. I say bad cold. It's not a bad cold. It's just some sniffles. I'm not dying of coronavirus, but I didn't feel well. Got up, thought my toilet was blocked up. Then I had a message from the guy who looks after my flat saying, have you found out the make of the tumble dryer yet? Because it's broken. Just as I thought I was going to come home to my flat leaking, I got into work and then I realised I had a bottle of water in my bag and they pulled it off for search. And then 2 hours later, Uncle Jürgen decided to open his big fat trap again. So Jürgen Klinsmann decided to write down in a diary. Yes, I know, a diary. It sounds like a 15-year-old schoolchild. I swear to God, if I ever hear that man's name mentioned in any context within Hertha BSC again, I am going to go absolutely fucking batshit. A diary. Decided to write down some memos down and was going to send them to Tenor, which is the holding company of Lars Windhorst now. Whether he wanted to make Lars Windhorst understand why he left the job, I don't know. But that's where it went, and guess what? Bild got hold of it. Yes, of all the companies, of people, the fucking trash newspapers to get hold of something, and Bild got hold of it. You're starting to wonder if maybe he sent it to them in the first place because they would publish it. If there's one thing you've got to say right now, it's very, very clear from what's been said by Klinsmann in these memos, in this 22-page document, that he does not give a shit about Hertha. The only person Jürgen Klinsmann cares about is Jürgen Klinsmann. So what did it say? It said that there was an idea or a environment of dishonesty within the club. He said that there was bad squad management and planning, that there was bad physical shape of players, that there was a bad performance culture. What the fuck is that? A lack of charisma in the leadership in the club. And he said the racism incident with Jordan Torunariga was handled badly. Now, every single one of those points that's come across is wrong. So anybody that knows Hertha and knows Hertha well will know that Michael Preetz is not the easiest guy to get on with. However, he is the sports director, the managing director of the club. He deals with nearly everything from media, which is another thing that Klinsmann complained about. He deals with players, things like that. And the one thing that Jürgen Klinsmann was asked to do by Preetz was to become the coach of the team. That means coach of the team. Means coaching the team. Not getting involved and sticking your nose into everything. It means coaching the team. Klinsmann was talking about English-style management where he's claimed, which, he's never managed here, so I don't know how on earth he got hold of this idea. People like Jurgen Klopp, Pep Guardiola, that they're involved in everything in the club, that they run everything. Guess what, Jurgen? It's a load of bullshit. The people that run these clubs in England, they're not the managers. Those managers are in charge of team building, etc. Yeah, they've got a bit more to do. But if you're talking about transfers and the running of the club, we're talking about owners. Of course, owners in Germany don't exist. Owners are not allowed to exist. 49% of the club is allowed to be owned by an outsource. That means Lars Windhorst is only allowed 49% of the club, 51% is in hold of the members. I'm sorry if you don't understand how that works, but you knew this when you took the job. I don't understand what your point is. Let's look at some of the ideas that he came across, some of the bullet points that came up in this 22-page document. I can't believe that he wrote 22 pages on how much he hates a club that he decided that he loved so much and blah, 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 blah. So the first thing was there was a atmosphere or a tradition of dishonesty. I have to say I don't understand what he's talking about. At what point were the club dishonest? Were they dishonest to us? Dishonest to him? Did they promise him something that he couldn't have? I don't think so. He was told he would be head coach of the team. That's head coach of the team. You're in charge of taking care of the team to make sure they get points on the pitch. Alexander Nuri knew this. Paul Dardai knew this. Even Otto Rehhagel knew that this was his job. So what's the problem? The only dishonesty I can think that he's talking about is that Pritz promised him something and then suddenly turned his back on it and decided, no, I'm not going to give you as much power as you want, which I don't think he would have done. Michel Pritz would never give up his position of power to someone that is a complete outsider. You're looking at someone who's been involved in the club for years now, and Klinsmann has basically come in, steamrolled it and said, you know what, I want absolute power. It's basically like a coup, and he's tried to get from the inside out. The best way to describe it is this. When you punch a hole in a piece of glass, there is a tiny hole in the middle and a massive splinter around the outside. That hole in the middle is Klinsmann. Now, if you hit it with your fist and you punch it, you bleed. The middle part is the tiniest part. Blood spurts outwards into the cracks. Klinsmann has gone through the middle and tried to spread outwards like that into the cracks, and it's not worked. If there was one person that's actually been more dishonest than anyone else, it's probably Klinsmann himself. He has made himself look like a complete arse, a complete dick, because he was supposed to coach this side out of relegation. He's now gone back on that. He is saying that the older players in the squad, Ibisevic, Kalou, don't have what it takes to get out of the relegation battle. 2 weeks ago, Jürgen Klinsmann said he believed that we will be absolutely fine and that we won't go down. Yeah, that changed pretty quickly. The hypocrisy in this is really ridiculous. I mean, you're talking about a man who's supposed to have a moral compass, someone who's very charismatic. He's done nothing but damage his own reputation. He's taking on a club, 30,000 members. He's not going to win this battle. The second thing he was talking about was bad squad planning. So I assume he's talking about who's using what players and when, but this was his idea. So he said he's come into it and there's a bad planning of squad. Well, guess what? That was your responsibility to sort out, Jürgen, because you were hired as head coach. So it was your responsibility to sort out who should play and who shouldn't. And most of the time you got it wrong. And now Alex Nuri seems to be getting it wrong as well. Yeah, okay, Alex Nuri made a mistake with the team selection in Cologne. We're going to come to the game in Dusseldorf later anyway. But bad squad planning, I don't understand that point either, because the players we brought in, Cunha, Piontek, Askasiba and Toussaint, they were all players he wanted. So where's the bad squad planning? This was your squad, Jürgen. The only person to blame for that, if it's bad planning, is you. Talk about players that are experienced like Kalou, Ibisevic. Okay, yes, Kalou may not play, that's a given. Ibisevic isn't playing. The difference is Kalou is moaning about it, Ibisevic isn't. Ibisevic has kept his mouth shut, Kalou hasn't. It's kind of, it's not Kalou's own fault that he's got himself into this sort of mode of training alone, but to actually exclude him from his friends and from his mates and to train away from everyone else, that is ridiculously unfair and really disrespectful. And to say these players, Ibisevic and Kalou, which is who he's probably talking about because they're the older, more experienced players, don't have what it takes to get out of a relegation. But you're talking about people, goal scorers that are within the best goal scorers in the club within the last 10, 20 years. Ibisevic and Kalou scored the majority of our goals last season. They're the reason we've stayed up so long. They have scored year after year after year after year. That's probably why we've not been relegated before now. It's not me saying we're going to be relegated. I'm just saying that we were not in this much trouble last season. Another thing he's been talking about is bad physical shape. Now, as far as I'm concerned, I don't see players in bad physical shape. Arne Meyer is injury prone. The players that have been injured this year are injury prone. It's completely normal in the football club for people to be injury prone or to get injured. It's a game that involves contact. You know, he's talking about the way that they train or the physical shape of them and how they've got it. You're talking about the trainers. So Kukno, I can never say his name. Henrik Wied is one of them, and Henrik Kukno, can never say his name. Anyway, you understand my point, right? Those two trainers and Petri, the goalkeeping trainer, has been involved. All three of them have been involved in this club since Paul Dardai was in charge. Not a single player was out of bad shape before then. You know, we were doing actually quite well under Dardai. I've never seen the players look out of shape or look bad physically. You're really insulting their work if you say that they're not doing a good enough job to keep the players fit, because if players not fit because they're not fit, it's not their fault with the fitness trainers, it's the fault of no one. You know, if someone's injury prone, they're injury prone. If they get an injury, it's no one's fault. It's up to, you know, someone to get them back into the shape they're in, and some people take longer than others to recover. I mean, what the hell does he want? Does he want every single player in the squad to have a six-pack and be able to lift, 5,000 kilos at a time? What the hell's wrong with him? We're talking about a guy that hasn't coached. I think it was like 6 years or something. When was the last time we got 2014? At the World Cup, 2015? 4 or 5 years out of coaching, and he's trying to tell people how to coach when he hasn't done it in this long, and he hasn't coached in the Bundesliga since he coached Bayern, which was so long ago, I don't even think I have the memory that goes back that far. Some of the things that are coming across here are so insulting to the rest of the management at the club. Yes, they're not perfect, but they don't deserve to be shredded like this. And the only person to make these claims is Jürgen Klinsmann. So where's it coming from? Why is he doing this? He was talking about, liking the club, wanting to do well, and now it seems that he wants us to go down because we sort of exposed him for being a fraud. The annoying thing is, everyone, myself included, was so excited when he came in, but it's a deception. And we were all deceived because we thought, big name coming in. We must be able to survive with a big name like Jürgen Klinsmann. We were all deceived, and within the sort of 24 hours that he went, I feel so stupid for actually being happy that he was there, and I am actually quite ashamed for shouting his name in the stadium during the Ausstellung. Another thing, oh my goodness me, performance culture, that was highlighted as a problem for Klinsmann. What the fuck is performance culture? I mean, are you talking about the performances themselves, or the culture of how you deal with a loss, or the way that you perform in training or on the pitch? There is no such thing as a performance culture. It's always been the same thing when you're a trainer. You look at the positives, you work on those and try and make the positives better, and any negatives that come out, you try and tackle them, and you have to try and source out what those negatives are. If that's what performance culture means, then I don't see a problem with it. They do it the same way as any other club. Performance-wise, I guess Arne Friedrich was brought in as a performance manager of some kind, but I sort of don't understand what his role is now. His role was to talk between the players and the management, but the players and the management are two separate things, two separate entities that shouldn't really mix with each other. Everyone wants the same thing. Everyone wants to win games. What is the point in getting things completely entwined with each other when what happens off the pitch is something different to what happens on it? Again, I'm saying this, Klinsmann has no right to interfere with what's happening off the pitch because his job is to coach a team. That was what his job was. I don't think I ever saw Paul Dardai get too big for his boots and say, I want to do this, and this off the pitch. I've never seen that. He only cared about getting 3 points on it and getting the best out of his team. And what we're seeing now is someone with way too much ambition for their own gratification and glory as well, but not for the sake of the club itself. He also said that the bosses lack charisma. Now, who the hell fucking cares whether Preetz lacks charisma or not? Nobody at Hertha that's a fan that thinks that Preetz is the god of all gods, but they're not going to concede to the fact that he's not good at doing business, because he is. It's kind of what his job is. He's not the easiest man to get on with. He's not the easiest person for fans to get on with because he doesn't always react in the correct logical way. That's just the way he is. He is difficult to get on with, and yeah, in the summer we may well change the guy who's in charge. We may well get rid of Preetz, we don't know. But you have to admit, at times he is good at his job and at times he is bad at it. But every sporting director's the same. You need someone that understands both sides. Maybe someone else will come in. But how does a lack of charisma affect what's going on the pitch? It doesn't. And if Jürgen Klinsmann's job is to coach the team and be only worried about things happening on the pitch, the performances by the players, then Boss's charisma has got nothing to do with it. Yeah, he's going to meet with Preetz after every game, say, I don't like this, 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 and this. Preetz hasn't got any influence over what happens on the pitch except for transfer-wise. That's all he can do. So why are we again getting two parts of the club completely mixed up with each other? Yes, they cross. They always do. You know, we signed this player, this is good for the club, blah, blah, blah. It's what Preetz does. It's his job to assess what's good, what's not good for the club. At the same time, the coach is brought in to coach. And I, for one, have never seen any other coach, including Paul Dardai and Ante Czovic, get this pissed off with a stick up their arse about not getting their own way. The last one that actually really pissed me off was that apparently we, as a club, did not deal with the racism incident with Jordan Torunariga quick enough, apparently. How quick can you deal with it? It was reported immediately after it happened. What are we supposed to do? Throw our arms up in the air in the middle of the game and claim that it happened? Everybody knows what happened. Everybody knows that nobody reported it on the pitch because they were too scared. They didn't want to walk off. Klinsmann spoke to the referee. What else is the club supposed to do other than fight for a ban or whatever, which is what they did? What else are we supposed to do? If the DFB says 50,000 euros fine for Schalke, that is all that we can do, is sit back and do nothing, because they're not going to change their mind. How else are we going to do it? The fans themselves are the ones that actually came forward and tried to make a deal out of what happened to Jordan Torunariga, not Klinsmann. Klinsmann said, actually, Klinsmann did fuck all to help with that incident. We did it. The fans were the ones that came up with the idea to support Jordan during that game against Mainz. So how can he say the club did nothing? The club encouraged it, social media-wise. Another thing that Klinsmann criticised, social media, getting out there, the media department. Every single thing to do with the club he criticised. Apparently we're doing it all wrong. Which is ridiculous because I believe 2 years ago we were in the Europa League. We were overachieving with a squad on a tiny budget. And apparently we're doing it all wrong. It's just a complete joke. I mean, the only person I can see actually making a fool out of themselves here is Jürgen Klinsmann, because Michel Preetz addressed this in a press conference despite an email going out to the supporters saying we're not going to deal with this in public. He did, which is typical Preetz. He did deal with it in public. He said something along the lines of, and people will hate him for it, people will like him for it, whatever. I actually think he handled it with dignity. Yes, maybe he can't look the audience in the eye. Not because his eyes cross. Maybe he can't. That's might be just the way he is. He's not great with dealing with people, but he addressed it and he is very, very upset and concerned. Of course he would be. And the club refutes what Klinsmann is saying. It's completely natural to do that. But in this case, I actually have to agree again with Preetz, because I don't understand how someone can come into a club, ram it through the middle and expect to change every single thing about it and claim everything about it is wrong, when all he was asked to do was keep us up this season as a head coach. It's very clear to me that from the beginning he wanted to worm his way inside, flower outwards, and then from the inside grasp power and change everything about it. Now, you cannot allow someone to do that. It's a dictatorship. It's political. It's a dictatorship. Somebody comes in and, okay, Hertha is not dictated by Michel Preetz alone. Yes, he has a lot of power, but he did not force his way in and then change everything at once. He didn't force everyone out. People that argue he forced Valdardai out, there was a bit of a sour relationship towards the end, but that's not the point. He didn't just come in like a bull in a china shop and do that, and no one can do that anyway. I mean, Preetz at least had a connection with the club. I'm not defending him in any way, but in this instance, I think he's in the right and Klinsmann's in the wrong. Klinsmann came in, expected to change everything overnight like he tried to do with the DFB, except for on this level, the supporters had a lot stronger voice than the DFB did, because obviously the way that the DFL, the DFB, the German team is different. It's a national team. things can change very quickly. But with a club like this, with a history and a very proud history and a city to represent, you cannot just come in and just change everything overnight. The fans will have a fit. I don't think Klinsmann is going to salvage anything from this. His reputation is gone. I don't think any club again in Germany is going to hire him unless they're completely stupid. He claims he wanted to come here. I mean, the clause about his son getting a contract back with the club was just ridiculous. I mean, that's how bad this has got. It's just childish behaviour. It's so childish. And just the way that he's gone about it, going to the media, writing a diary, it's so pathetic. And I am so glad right now that he's out. But in a way, it's interrupted the progress of the club. And you know what? Alexander Nuri actually did the right thing today when he had a press conference where he said, I haven't got time to worry about this. I've got a team to coach. This was exactly the right attitude. This is the attitude Klinsmann should have had. I don't have time to worry about all this shit. I've got a team to coach. Which brings us on to this game against Fortuna Düsseldorf. We lost 5-0 to fucking Cologne. How can we expect to beat Düsseldorf? Oh, God. Our away form is better than our home form. Maybe that's a good thing. Other than that, I ain't got a fucking clue. Okay, let's start with the very obvious thing. Nuri in the press conference said that he needs to analyse what happened in the game against Cologne, and he spoke about Düsseldorf liking the wide areas. Now, Niklas Stark is banned for this game. Santiago Ascasibar is banned for this game, which means he's got probably very little choice but to play a back four. Now, if he plays a back three with two wingers, or two wing backs, that's a Dreierkette, and we can't do fucking Dreierkette. No more Dreierkette. No more. No more Dreierkette. Anyway, if that is the case, we cannot play two wing backs. Wolf has no spatial awareness about what's going on behind him. Can only see what's in front of him. If Düsseldorf are going to do what he thinks they are in the last few weeks, which is they've been, under their new coach, Javier Rosa, they've been playing very well on the wings. If they do that, we need to be very aware. Now, I looked back at the games that we've won and the games that we've drawn and the games that we've lost. Every single game that we have drawn, we have played a back four or a back five. Every single game that we have lost, we have played a back three with two wing backs. And it's really, really obvious what the determining factor is in that statistic. Maximilian Mittelstädt is not quite as bad at this job as Wolf. When we beat Paderborn, we had Peter Pekarik there. Very defensive player, very good. Then we got Klünter, defender, much better. But if you have a back five or a back four, you're covered on those wings. You don't need to worry about that. And I keep saying go back to a 4-4-2, 4-4-1-1, 4-3-3. Anything with a back four is going to be fine. The fact that Nuri addressed this in the press conference kind of suggests that he's looked at it and gone, we've had problems in 2 games now with the wings. Maybe I should change something. The fact that he mentioned that they are good down the flanks kind of suggests that he might change it. But if he doesn't, I am there in Düsseldorf. I will jump over that barrier onto the pitch, into the dugout, and slap him with a cold wet fish if he does not change the formation. Where was I again? Oh yeah, the Wolfsburg. Okay, so this is what I don't understand. So we beat Wolfsburg away 2-1. So we lost to Bayern 4-0. Happens. I expected to lose in Wolfsburg 2-1. Now, Wolfsburg didn't play particularly well, but we defended well in that game because their biggest danger is their wingers and their forwards, Maxi Arnold, etc. We held them at bay for quite a long time. And we won 2-1. And we did all right. And I think we probably deserved to win 2-1. Just. But a week later, we lost 3-1 to Mainz. Now, the thing is, Mainz just lost 4-0 to Wolfsburg in Wolfsburg. How is it that we beat Wolfsburg in Wolfsburg 2-1 and then we lost 3-1 to Mainz? How is it that we beat Paderborn 2-1 away, of which Bayern actually struggled to beat them at home, yet we lost 5-0 to Cologne? How is that? How does that work? If we are capable of beating Wolfsburg and beating Paderborn, because Paderborn are not easy to beat as people assume they are, if we are capable of that, then we shouldn't be losing fucking 5-0 to Cologne, although they have gotten better. We shouldn't be losing to Düsseldorf. It's just not acceptable. Mainz, they go up and down. Against Wolfsburg, they were awful, and Wolfsburg have been terrible since the season started. In the second half of the season, the Rückrunde started. How is this happening? I mean, it's just too obvious that things need to change now. Player whatever, 4-4-2, anything that has a back four. This Dusseldorf game is incredibly important. If we win it, everyone will be confident again. If we lose it, we are in a lot of trouble. Okay, Bremen, they've got a very difficult schedule, but we've got a long way to go. I think 11 games, 11 times 3 is 33. 33 points at 26 is, ooh, 26 at 33 is 59. Yeah, 59. We're not going to get 59 points. We could, however, get at least 3 or 4 wins, which would then take us up to 35, 39. That's enough to survive, especially with the schedules that Bremen have got. Mainz lost 4-0. Now, this is what really fucking confuses me. Okay, we can say, yeah, Klinsmann was in charge at the time, but we all know that tactically Nuri was in charge of that. Klinsmann was doing the substitutions. We saw the substitutions against Cologne were actually ones that made sense with players that came on, but not players that came off. Against Paderborn, we had players that, you know, came on, it made more sense. Derrida made a big difference. Nuri made those decisions, whereas with Klinsmann, the substitutes didn't really make a lot of sense. And whether Grujic has got something in his contract that says he has to play, I don't know, but he can't if he's going to play as badly as he did against Cologne. Derrida is doing better this year. We cannot afford any more fuck-ups like the one against Cologne. If we defend the way that we did against Wolfsburg, against Paderborn, because we still had these problems on the wings, they weren't really looked at. And this is the worry for me. You look at the positives in the Paderborn game and you think that's great, but you don't look at the negatives because you won. It's always very, very easy to look at the positives when you win, but not to look at the negatives when you win. Therefore, you miss the problems. And I think that's exactly what Nuri has done. He's looked at the positives in the Paderborn game, the pressing, you know, the substitutions that were made, and he's taken that to the Cologne game thinking, we don't need to change anything at the back. The thing is, he hasn't noticed the errors because he's been too busy looking at the positives, and that's how you end up losing games after winning them. We seem to be doing away games better this season. Maybe it's not the pressure of playing at home, but, you know, we have to get something. Dusseldorf are not a bad side. They're not a great side. Tactically on paper, you know, specifically on paper, we should be beating them easily, but it's got to be a hell of a lot better. And you know what the worst thing is? All we need now is fight. Kämpfen und siegen. Fight, win. That is all you need to see. If you're seeing players that look like they don't care, how's that meant to make you feel? I mean, personally, the way that I would set up against Dusseldorf would be obviously you have to have Jahrstein in goal, because although he's made mistakes, it's Jahrstein, kind of have to have him Stark suspended. So I would say have a back four of Boyata, Torunariga. If Pekarik's fit, use him. If not, then Klünter at the right back position, Plattenhardt or Maxi, doesn't matter which, at the left back position. And you just want to play a 4-4-2 or a 4-5-1 or something. You know, have two wingers, have Dodi and Javira Durason. You can't keep leaving him out of the side. Durason is very, very quick, very pacey, and Dusseldorf aren't going to be able to handle him because their defence isn't great this season. They lost 4-1 at home to Gladbach, for instance. Put them on, you know, Jav and Dodi down the wings, then you put two in the middle, one defensive, one attacking, Derrida as the attacker, Meyer or Skelbred as the defensive midfield, and then you put Cunha just behind Piontek. It's not hard to work out. Those two work well off each other. You know, for me, that would be how I'd set it up. Of course, I'm not Alex Nuri, and if he does do the same formation again, I might scream myself to sleep that night. I am not confident of winning this next game, but if we do, then great, but this shit with Klinsmann is just doing my nut in. On a very, very sad note, to leave off, we received some news yesterday that a scientist, whether he's a Berlin scientist or not, I don't know, but he is a scientist in Germany, made a statement or wrote an article on Jordan Torunariga claiming that during racist incidents, people should ignore racism. They should get over it. Basically, his words were something along the lines of, you should get over it, taunting and insults are a part of the game, should just get over it, deal with it later, blah, blah, blah. For me, that is one of the most disgusting things I think I've ever read in my life. People who have grown up very privileged, and I hate to say this, and I know it's going to sound really, really unfair, but if you are a white, male, privileged upbringing in the United Kingdom, in Germany, in America, anywhere where it's normal to look like this, even I don't look quite like that because I'm quite dark-skinned, because I'm originally, or my family is from Yugoslavia, so my face is quite dark. Unless you are of a minority, you have no idea how it feels to be racially targeted, because, you know, the feeling is that if someone says you ignore it, the worst thing is if you ignore it, it justifies it, it legitimizes racism, it makes it sound normal. And people always say, oh, you know, you're taking it beyond too much, you're saying too much, you're reading too much into it, you're being so unnecessarily over the top. It's not over the top at all. How do you think the Holocaust even started? Didn't start as someone just chucking someone in Auschwitz and then killing them, did it? It started with words, people that were easily swayed and easy to manipulate, believing words about people because of their race or their religion, which then transcended into hatred, which then transcended into what we know as Nazism and what we know as fascism. That is what it becomes. It doesn't start with death, it starts with words and hateful words, you know. And the worst thing is these days, obviously, it hasn't got to that point. There are racial attacks that go beyond this point, but they're more of, like, you know, insults and stuff. The worst thing is for someone who's racially insulted, it's not just words. I've had it myself. I think, you know, I can't exactly say because I'm not black, but it doesn't matter. I am someone who's come from originally from another country and suffered racism and you've been on the end of people's nationalism in this country. I have been on the end of insults aimed at ethnicity and nationality. And the worst thing is those words are more hurtful than people realize. It does so many awful things to your mental health. It does so many things to your mindset, especially when you're young. Jordan is younger than me, and it's extremely hurtful. But at the same time, the reason it hurts so much is that you are left wondering why you can't be normal, why you can't be like everyone else. Why can't I have an English name? Why can't I be white? Why can't I be straight? Why can't I look like everyone else? Why do I have to look so different? Why do I have to be different? That's what you end up wondering about yourself. And in the end, people get to you so much that you just begin to despise yourself. And that's the effect it has on your mental health. So if someone says, oh, it's perfectly okay in football to insult someone racially, it's a load of bullshit. It's so unfair, it's unjust, it's disgusting. Racism is something that is unfortunately rife. People think it's funny, they think it's a laugh. They don't understand the damage that it does and what their words lead to in the end, because there are people out there that will physically harm people because they're different, because I say different, but because they don't look like them. And for someone like a professional scientist to come forward and try to justify what the Schalke fans did by also saying that Jordan was the only person that heard it, which is not true. Schalke fans actually came forwards on social media and said they heard what happened for themselves. It's just disgraceful, and that person has apparently now been removed from their position. So, you know, there is, you know, we as fans of Hertha, we stand with anybody that suffered racial abuse, and even if you're someone who's not suffered racial abuse, you should always stand up for those that have, and stand up against those that insult others, because it doesn't take anything to be human. It doesn't take anything to respect other people. It doesn't take anything to love someone, not hate them. If you see anybody doing something as horrendous as this, you have to do something about it. Because if you allow it to happen, then you are a bystander and you are no better than the person doing it themselves. And, you know, this is something that Jordan's seen. He reacted to it, said it was so stupid, and he's absolutely right. But, I mean, I don't know if you can see my Torunariga shirt has sort of been replaced by Teddy. We call these stickers, thank you, Jan. Say no to racism, number 25. We all love Jordan as a player and as a guy. And he's not the only one that's suffered this at Hertha. There's been players in the under-16s, players in the under-23s. Jessic Nyankam was one of them. Hertha were fined for walking off the pitch because of racism for their under-16s, which is ridiculous. You know, we cannot tackle this problem until we actually face that it exists. And we've seen it, and even friends of mine have heard it in the stadium from our own supporters. And, you know, I said to them when they heard it themselves, I said, if I was next to you, I would have punched that guy in the face. Like, nah, you would have got in trouble. I don't care. No one deserves to be abused in that way. And we have to fight. The good thing is that the majority of us hate it. And the majority of us will stand up against it. And we will always be the majority. So please, if you can do anything to help in stadiums, in anywhere, just help fight against it. The one thing I am proud of about the Cologne game, even though we played terribly, was the fact that when someone tried to interrupt silence for the victims of Hanau, a horrible racist attack on people of Hanau in Germany last week, someone tried to interrupt the silence for them. Some idiot, probably some right-wing thinker. Apparently he was someone who was known to have right-wing thoughts. This person that hurt these people in Hanau was a right-wing thug, far right-wing. And instead of, you know, just sort of standing there, putting up with it, the fans in the Ostkurve and everywhere in the stadium started to boo, whistle, and then all of a sudden you just heard this chant of Nazis raus, Nazis raus, Nazis out, Nazis out. That is the one good thing that came out of that Cologne game, and I'm so glad that it did. But that's sad to end it on a even more negative note. But I just hope that people that suffer that know that they're not on their own. And from a personal point of view, I can't exactly 100% empathise with people of colour, because although, like I said, I am quite skinned, and someone actually came up to me at work the other day and said, "Oh, you have a nice tone to your skin, where are you from?" So, like, as if I wasn't British, but in a nice way, you know. I do know how it feels, because, you know, literally 2 days before the Jordan Torunariga incident happened, I was told to fuck off back to Serbia. So you have no idea how horrible that feels and how disgusting it makes you feel about yourself. So, because even though you know it's not true, it's still in your head, you know? So, please, if you see it, if you see anything in Germany, any football stadium, do something. Report it to stewards. I work as a steward. If I hear racism, the first thing I'd do is get someone, hire a management, get them removed. Get the person banned. We try and fight for the ban for life. But please, don't just do nothing. It's really, really important, because the worst reaction is worse than silence, is to do nothing.